That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney or current Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it, Legends. Now today I have for you Book 3 in the new Jedi Order series, the epic Avengers Endgame event of the entire expanded universe, considered by many the best, considered by some garbage. Most people are stupid. And for some, annoyingly so, the end of the timeline of the expanded universe. But what we all agree upon, or what most agree upon, is that this series is phenomenal. But this is book 3. However, this is the second book written by Michael Stackpole within the new Jedi Order series, which is technically a duology. Part 2, Dark Tide Ruin. So, second half of this plot. So there's a lot of things going on in this book. The essential plight of it all is the battle for Ithor. As everything kind of culminates near the end of this book on Ithor being the Ithorian planet, those hammerhead-looking dudes, you know? And so trying to stop the Yusong Vong from attacking that planet and taking it over. At the same time, we get still more development with Jason, more development with Corran Horn, and Jaina, Gavin Darklighter, Wedge Antilles, of course, because it's written by Michael Stackpole, who knows those characters. You know, we also get a lot with Luke, we get a lot with Mara, we get a lot with Anakin. So everybody here kind of plays a role. We also get introduced to some new fantastic characters that will play integral roles moving forward in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, like Jagged Fell, who's the son of Baron Fell. We also get introduced to one of the greatest Star Wars villains of all time, Shadow Shai, who is a Vong War Master. And he was teased at the end of the last book, but this is really where he shines, and we get a lot of conversations between him and Elagos, because Elagos goes to him to learn about him, and so he can learn about Elagos. And so we get a lot of that there. And we get a lot of other fantastic moments in this book without spoilers, though. That's all I can really get into. The Vong culture is established a little bit more here. There's still a lot more we don't know about, and as we get through the series, we'll learn more. I mean, I already know it, but chronologically speaking, we get a little bit more information here about certain things, but not everything is concrete yet. Pretty much by the second half, when we get past Traitor, I think you basically know the Vong at that point. The only thing left is the Shamed Ones, which we haven't even have as a concept yet. We'll get into that down the line. But that's basically, yeah, so a lot more of the embrace of pain, is understood. Mainly through Shadow Shai and Elagos. We get a lot more of these, not philosophical, but these discussions that they have about the nature of their peoples and everything, and those are some of those fascinating parts of the book. But for me personally, pretty much solely due to the Elagos and Shadow Shai scenes, it's very much like a proto Traitor. Traitor is kind of like these sections of the book, but times a million, as that's 85% of the entire novel. But we're not at Traitor, we're not going to talk about that. But I think just because of those scenes alone, this is my favorite of Michael Stackpole's. In fact, let me just say, without a shadow of a doubt, X-Wing, iJedi, whatever else that he worked on with Zahn, doesn't matter. These two New Jedi Order books are my favorite books that Michael Stackpole has written within the Star Wars Expanded Universe, at least. Absolutely phenomenal read, and I really, really enjoyed it. But that, I want to get more into the meat and potatoes, so that's pretty much the gist of what I'm going to tell you. If you haven't read this book, which you should be reading this series, but no, it's really good, really worth your time. That's what I'm going to say there. So I'm going to go from there. I'm going to get into spoilers. Yeah, so, even here we start to see conflicts even amongst the Vong. You know, they're not all unified. We learn that Shadow Shy hates Nominor, just despises the guy. Nominor is a politician. Nominor is like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. If you don't understand that reference, then you don't get it, but if you get it, you get it. Chaos is a ladder. Nominor wants to rise to the top, and he's very much... We haven't learned too much about Nominor yet, so I won't get too much into his character, but I will say he's very practical. And the religion that the Vong believe in, Nominor doesn't care about as much. Oppose that with this Thrawn-like villain, Shadow Shy, who is a lot more articulate and military strategic-wise smart, but entirely devout to the religion of the Vong. So there's that. Also, the Jedi have a debate as to what to do against the Vong, and my God, if this was a movie, it'd be just like those stupid Twilight movies with Team Edward, Team Jacob. I'm Team Kip. Now, obviously, Michael Stackpole writes Kip in a way, annoyingly so that he's wrong, right? But overall, minus little minor things that Kip kind of jabs at people, he's right. The overall gist of what he's saying is we need to be on the offensive, and it's not of the dark side, because we know, based on the information we have gathered right now, the Vong are not looking for peace. They're not looking for compromises. I mean, Elgos looks for that, and we'll get to him in a little bit. There is no compromise. They want to take it. They will not stop for any reason. Even if you surrender, they will introduce you to their culture, but it's going to fundamentally change everything that the galaxy is. They will not stop, even if you surrender. They're not going to just carve out a little territory. They want it all. We need to stop them. He's right. Luke is wrong. In fact, this entire book, this entire duology, Luke is so weirdly contradictory and frustrating, and there's no clear thing as to what he's saying exactly, because it's all, hold on. But yeah, Team Kip all the way. Elgos wants to talk to the Vong to try to get them to understand, so that's what he goes to do. Jaina and Jason have this really nice discussion between each other, and it was just a really good scene. Here we go. Gilead Pelion is back. My man, who is now Grand Admiral of the Empire, of the Imperial Remnant. I love Gilead. Phenomenal character. So glad he got to be in this book. And he's just amazing as he's always been. Shadow Shy has, and there's more than one, but he has so many fascinating conversations with Elagos on the nature of his people and them talking back and forth, and the clear respect that Shadow Shy has with Elagos, which is really fascinating to read about. And even by the end of this book, it seems like Shadow Shy, in the only way that the Vong can, he seemed to genuinely care, at least in my interpretation, seemed to genuinely care about Elagos, despite what he ends up doing in this book. But I just found that him one of the most fascinating characters we've had so far as a new addition to this universe. We get to see Q-Zux again. That was cool. Like, look. Not everybody likes Jedi Academy Trilogy, but you know what? You know damn well you were excited when you saw her. Why? Because EU connections are freaking great. And that's because a student is angry and wants to go to the dark side, and it's not the best part of the book, but actually kind of drags it down a little bit because I didn't really care that much. But she's upset and everything, and she's going to the dark side, but they fix it. And she was asking Q-Zux about super weapons, and it was a whole subplot that was a waste of time, in my opinion. But whatever. Jason being unsure. One of the biggest things about Jason is being unsure who he wants to be, what he is, and I'll get more into it. I have a point to make moving forward with that. Ganner's development's also great. He goes from being, this cocky kind of butthole to being a more humble being as he gets scarred, which was cool. And then Jagged Sutrafel is one of my new favorites. He always was when I read it for the first time, but rereading it again, when the politicians yelled at him for being xenophobic, and he gives this rant back at them about No, I'm not. You're retarded. Sorry if that offends you. You're stupid. That's what he's saying. He's saying you are dumb. And so that scene was phenomenal with him. I absolutely love that scene. It made me fall in love with him the instant he started having speaking lines. And it's also just cool to see the Empire, who's been the enemy of the movies, right? And the enemy, even if you count the sequels, is the... Anyway, I'm not talking about that. But the Empire's always been the villain, and in the Bantam era, the Empire was still the villain. So it is so cool to see prior enemies, now allies, join up against a bigger threat. I always love that. Point 4, on my goal to proving all people wrong, 'cause I'm right and you're always wrong. I'm hyperbole a little bit. But point number 4, Jason needs to know. This is something addressed in this book. It isn't actually fixed. It's just for this instance. For this particular problem, he sets it aside. It doesn't actually go away. Which is his need to know more. Not just of the present, but of the future. Because he constantly cannot just live in the present. He worries constantly about the future. And hey man, I relate it. I understand. I do that often. I overthink. But it is something he consistently wants. Is to just already know what he's going to be. And if you take the future into account, that's a little bit of foreshadowing accidentally, but also it is a problem. Everybody says, he's the Qui-Gon. He's the Qui-Gon of this era by the end of it. Wah, 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 wah. Well, Qui-Gon said to live in the present. Literally one of his first lines in episode 1. What do you want about? They're probably mean by the end of it, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, but it is a problem. It is another problem that he has. There's so much pride and arrogance that comes from Jason in these early books. Sure, he's philosophical. Sure, he's kind and well-mannered. But that doesn't change the fact that all these things he has within him right now are issues. It's not just that he doesn't know what he wants to be, it's that he doesn't know what he wants to be, he doesn't know what he wants to do, but he judges everyone else around them for making decisions when they're older. Every single time. Without fail. It's the most infuriating and annoying thing about him. He knows so much, he knows better, but he doesn't know what he wants to do. And this persists throughout all of New Jedi Order, even after Traitor and everything. He still thinks he knows best. Oh, he may not be like a dick about it or be dark side about it, but he's still like, I know what we gotta do. He can be respectful. He can even respect other people's decisions like Luke or other people, but it doesn't change the fact that 9 times out of 10, whether he actually knows what he wants to do yet or doesn't know what he wants to do yet, Jason knows best because he's Jason. It's a problem. It doesn't matter how subtle it is, doesn't matter how much it's framed in a positive light that he's just figuring out his way to becoming a better man. It's a problem. But again, we'll get further on in this as we keep going through the series. This hard part. So this is kind of like the biggest thing I just remember about Elagos. And it's the thing I always think about when I read Hand of Thrawn or I, Jedi. It's just this. His death. And it's darkly, it is foreshadowed several times throughout the book. Because people start to second guess Shadow Shai, the Vong. They're like, are you actually one of us? Are you being tainted by this man? He's like, no, I'm always loyal to the Vong. Just because I want to learn does not mean I'm not loyal. And he says, come on, Elagos, you are going to be my ambassador. You are going to send a message. Bones are found by Corran and Wedge of Elagos. Dead. But in a way that's meant to honor Elagos, as they would honor the Vong's dead. And he says, this is how you honor the dead, not what you did to my kin. But he was just a skeleton, which means that Shadow Shy removed all the skin and feathers away from this man, strangled him to death, and then ripped him apart. Cut him open. For such a kind, passive man. Such a mature and scary death for such a character. It may not be a movie character, but it's still a fairly big character to just take away. That's one of the most hard-hitting scenes of the book. It's crazy. And by the end of this book, Shadow Shy, Cornhorn, they face off against one another. And Cornhorn remains victorious. Though he allowed the dark side to control him for a second in that last moment because he killed him to get the satisfaction. But in the end, this isn't really a victory by the end of this book. It is a massive defeat because Ithor ends up still burning. And Cornhorn must go back to Corellia because the New Republic is blaming him for all the ills that have just gone on. So this is a loss for our heroes, for the New Republic, for everyone. And that's how the book ends, on a down note. And that's going to be a continuing trend in the New Jedi Order up until after a certain point. So, yay, more depression. The only positive thing is that Han will be back in the game as we get into the next duology by James Luceno. But we'll get there in a bit. But we have more depression to be had, more losses to be had, more sadness to be had, but also some fun along the way as Han finds his way again. We'll see how that goes in the next story, but that's overall my thoughts. Absolutely love the Dark Tide Duology by Michael Stackpole. My favorite thing that Michael Stackpole has written is these two books, even more so than the X-Wing books. Absolutely a fantastic read. Highly recommend, and I hope you guys will check out this entire series someday. If you have not read the Bantam Era, please do not read this first. I know you want to get there, but don't do it. And if you're listening to all this and you haven't read the book, what's wrong with you? I don't care. Read the book regardless. That's it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and may the Force be with you.